Isn't it? So listen, I have a short show for you today, and the reason is Congress has not really made any decisions whatsoever. They're at a stalemate along the reconciliation, the $3.5 trillion Infrastructure Act, as well as some of the tax changes, which are also dependent upon that Reconciliation Act. So a lot of what I was going to plan on covering with you today, I'm not going to cover with you because there is no conclusion. There is no set strategy now because we're still in limbo waiting for the government to make their decisions. However, there are some things going on that I do want to cover with you today. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to cover really a vaccine update. We're moving, we're inching, we're not jumping leaps and bounds. We've got, 214 million first doses at this point, and that's as of October 1st. It's inching up. We do know that the FDA has approved the Pfizer booster shot, and we also know that they are approving the youngster shot, ages 5 and up. Unemployment is the big one we want to talk about because a lot of our inflationary issues, a lot of our economic recovery issues are really based upon employment. I do want to state one thing for sure. There is a lot of conjecture on a fourth stimulus act. There have been some bills floated around between age 62 and 65. Those have all been pretty much killed based upon the economics. And, Joe Manchin said it the best, as you can see here. There's 11 million jobs available, and there's 8 million people still unemployed. Something's not matching up here. And fewer people seem to want to go back to work. Well, there's a reason for that. We work because we have to. We have to provide shelter, food, the things that are important in life. But when the government provides those, we look at Sweden and Denmark, and we look at Germany, and we look at the work productivity of those countries. And while a lot of people step back and go, oh, well, I'd love to go to, Sweden because they pay for your education and they pay for your health care. Well, that's true, but there's a very low productivity work ethic there, which is why the United States has led the economics for the last 100 years, right? So again, this is an issue of if you provide it for free, people don't have to work for it. And there are some interesting discussions that are out there and some studies that have been produced by interested parties stating that the extra money that was put into people's pocket has no bearing on their output. Well, okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. Because when people don't have to go to work and they can go to the park and they can travel and they can spend time home with the kids or, I don't know, sit and eat Cheetos and play a video game, then they're not going to go to work and there's a very small percentage of people that will still continue it. But the fact of the matter is that unemployment is at a stalemate. And it's at a stalemate until people start to run out of money. Now, that will happen. I can promise you that will happen. And it's just a matter of when they go and spend through their money. And if we look at the Roaring Twenties playbook, this has happened already in history. So if we take a look and we say, hey, listen, you put, all this money, $300 per child, and this is going back to the welfare days of the 80s. And I still remember this where, people would keep having babies because, hey, every baby would give you another free check. And as much as people didn't like Clinton, and I didn't agree with most of what he did, at least what he did was he killed that program because he recognized that that was a disincentive for people to go to work and to stay home and just keep having babies. So again, this whole child tax care credit idea that you're going to make $3,600 tax-free per child per year, that's going to be a problem. But even with that in mind, if we take a look at what's happened, we had a spending spree hit in the 1918 pandemic, the 1919 pandemic, which then turned into the Roaring Twenties. Well, we're going through that same exact phase. The difference then was it happened quicker, and it happened quicker because we didn't have all these social programs pumping money into people's pockets. However, they did hold on to a lot of money in the 20s, and there was also this mentality of get back to work, because they couldn't take time off. They didn't have unemployment back then. They didn't have Social Security back then. They didn't have welfare, Section 8, food stamps. They didn't have any of that stuff back then. So what did people do? They went back to work, and they went back to work fast. So the difference between the dynamic today and what happened, 100 years ago is we're going to see that a little bit more spread out, which is represented in my econ map, which if you've been following this for any period of time, we're hitting up there in the 90% accuracy on timing range. But if you follow that, it'll show you that sometime next year between the first and second quarter, we're going to start to see people running out of money and they're going to go back to work, right? Right now, we have the highest amount of money ever in cash sitting on the sidelines. There's $5 trillion sitting in sidelines. And the highest, then the last record was $3.8 trillion in 2009. So when that money runs out, then obviously there's going to be two dynamics. One will be people will get back to work. Two is there's going to be a habit that people will have to break. And that habit is I don't have to go to work and I can just go out and spend all kinds of free government money. Well, that's not going to last forever, right? So when that happens is when we have to start worrying about the stock market. We have to start worrying about the real estate market, even though I'm very concerned about it right now. However, I do want to, again, point out one very important fact. In 1929, and the crash that preceded the pandemic, there were more millionaires minted. Why? Because if you understand money and you understand where to watch for the growth, the declines, and where money is being spent, you can come out ahead of where everybody else is at that point. Now, let's talk about the S&P 500. Hey, we're down a little bit by the week, but if we take a look at the overall chart for the year, we're up 16.4% year to date. If we average that out for an annualized rate of return, we're up over 21%. So we're still really good on track, okay? Again, the forbearance in the properties is still at about 1.6 million. That's unchanged from last week. And I'm still putting my circle of opportunity into that end of first quarter into the second quarter of next year. That's 2022. And taxes we know are going up, and we know that the original promise of no one under $400,000 of income will pay more taxes, that's already been broken. I've proven that over and over again. If you've watched the last 10 shows, I've shown you every little point where people under $400,000 will be paying the majority of the tax increases. As a matter of fact, the people over $400,000 will rarely be paying any additional tax increases. Only on estate tax, only on capital gains tax, and again, those things can still be avoided. So the actions to take, well, I'm going to hit this one again. If you're paying for life insurance and you're paying for long-term care insurance, consider putting those into a profit-sharing plan so that you can get a full deduction on it. Consider refinancing your real estate. Get ready for next year because I think there's going to be some really good real estate opportunities. Still consider a reverse mortgage. I'm a big believer in these things. I think they're a great tool. It doesn't need to be that you're running out of money and you can't afford to pay your property tax, so you need to do a reverse mortgage. It needs to be something where you can utilize that money for investments. And then consider gifting to kids. Hey, before I wrap up today, as I promised a short show today, if you have not yet subscribed, or if you've got friends, relatives, kids, grandkids, and they're just getting started, here's my suggestion. We set up a sister company called Wiser Retire, and this is really designed for the non-high net worth people. So if they're just starting off and they have a low amount of money and they're really just looking for education on how to accumulate money, I would suggest having them go to wiserretire.com, or they can just Google and jump onto this channel, the YouTube channel. But if you're in a high net worth situation, again, H&H Retirement Design and Management is really designed for those tax situations and those high net worth situations that are very different. It's more of people that are in the distribution phase. So with that in mind, if you got any other questions, give the office a call. It's 844-702-1040. And with that, have a great first weekend in October.